I am Amisi Nyamiche Thompson. We start, and United States Ambassador to Ghana, Virginia Palmer, is calling for continued dialogue with the government of Ghana following the imposition of a 10% tariff on Ghanaian exports to the U.S., which takes effect this week. The announcement has sent shockwaves through Ghana's private sector, with experts warning of severe consequences for exports and national revenue. This development comes on the heels of a U.S. decision to withdraw a portion of its aid to Ghana, an action former President John Mahama, President John Mahama has been speaking on that. He has tasked the finance minister to address fiscal loopholes to mitigate the impact despite the concerns. Ambassador Palmer, summing up her assessment of today's discussions, expressed hope that Ghana could still drive some benefits from evolving situation. She reiterated the need for further engagement between both governments.
From the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, where the meeting between the U.S. Ambassador Virginia Palmer and, of course, high officials of the Ministries of Trade, Finance, and also now the Foreign Affairs Minister is just concluding. What you see now is that in a few minutes from now, we will see the American Ambassador Virginia Palmer fire out to that meeting. It's been hours of a very engaging moment today that we've seen, and of course you can see the ambassador there filing out after a meeting this morning. But Ambassador, good morning. Do you have any few words to share with us?
Well, I had a great meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and we talked about how the relationship with Ghana is very strong and how we can keep it going that way, and the sort of details of what these global tariffs are, and some things where the United States and Ghana can improve our trade relations.
We're in the lowest tariff regime. What does that mean to, between the relations that we have?
Well, I hope that it means that Ghana will have some benefit vis-a-vis its competitors, but we'll dig in and continue to talk.
Do you feel you've convinced the minister enough?
The minister and I are good friends.
Is a bit high for Ghana.
Well, so there you have it, the U.S. Ambassador to Ghana, Virginia Palmer, speaking to us there exclusively and giving us a sense of perhaps what might have happened throughout the engagement for today live here on the Join News channel. And you've just got it first on the platform, a clear indication that yes, indeed, that meeting has happened, and you see the U.S. Ambassador filing out of that meeting. We'll be bringing you some updates, but what you've just seen now is just the beginning of a raft of measures that the government of Ghana will be announcing in a couple of days to come, because clearly this engagements will now inform the government better on what might happen in the coming days. We're awaiting an official statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Trade, and also the Finance Ministry on what the next steps might be. But indeed, we have gotten that clear indication from the American ambassador yet again, repeating the quote she repeated to us a couple of days ago when she hosted a few of us as journalists and explaining to us perhaps what might have been going on in the U.S., specifically in Washington. And for her, despite the rhetoric and despite all that's happening in the U.S., Ghana indeed remains important to the U.S., a reason for which she indeed honored the invitation here today, which in diplomatic terms indicates that the ambassador is willing to engage with the Ghanaian counterparts. We're not sure of what the next moves might be. All we've seen so far is the directive from the president indicating to the finance minister to take a number of measures as alternative moves in the wake of the Trump directives. What we're seeing now is in regards to trade, but obviously we're surmising that issues about even our foreign aid might feature some more. So what happened last month was that, of course, there was a 90-day pause, and the president had directed the finance minister to find financing gaps and challenges that are being created as a result of the cuts in aid. But a lot more is happening here at the Foreign Affairs Ministry, and we'll be giving you a sense of what will happen beyond the 90-day pause. It's clear now to us that some aid measures will be gone, except to say that lifeline activities will be protected by the U.S. Government. They have clearly indicated to us that life-saving measures in terms of health, which is costing us somewhere around 70 million in terms of the aid we're receiving from the United States, will be maintained.
Well, meanwhile, African ministers responsible for trade are set to hold a crisis deliberation next week following the latest executive order signed by the U.S. President Donald Trump announcing new import tariffs for countries across the world. While Ghana is attracting a base rate of 10%, other countries such as Lesotho, for instance, could be paying as high as 50% on U.S. import tariffs when the Trump directive goes into effect on April 9. Given the latest development and its likely impact on African countries, Secretary General of African Continental Free Trade Area, Wamkele Mene, has hinted that the Ministers of Trade will meet on 14th April to deliberate on this matter and exactly how our continent should respond.
The President of the United States has given us a wake-up call. And the wake-up call is that we must accelerate our own economic self-sufficiency. The Ministers of Trade will meet on the 14th of April to deliberate on this matter and exactly how our continent should respond.
In the meantime, the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area has entered into a memorandum of understanding with the National Bar Association of the U.S. Although this engagement is aimed at deepening cooperation, there are fears that U.S. President Donald Trump's rhetoric of America First could leave Africa benefiting less than it should. But Secretary General Wamkele Mene says that will not be the case.
We will continue to pursue that trade and investment partnership that is based on mutual respect and mutual benefits. And this is what we agreed to with Ambassador Tai, the then U.S. Trade Representative. We obviously will not be in a position to condone or support America first and everybody else last. That is not a partnership that is within the spirit of the MOU that we have with the United States. We will pursue what is in Africa's best interests, not last interests, but best interests, as we seek a path forward in respect of AGOA. Combined with some of the trade instruments that we have introduced, as well as the overall liberalization objective of the AfCFTA, I believe that we're well positioned as a continent to turn this crisis into an opportunity.
So head of our diplomatic desk, Blessed Soga, just joined me in the studio from the Foreign Affairs Ministry. I will be engaging him more on the meeting that just happened at the Foreign Affairs Ministry. Blessed, so you're just coming in. What more do we expect?
Well, interesting days ahead for the Republic of Ghana. But let me just briefly touch on the outburst by the Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Clearly, what will happen now is that on April 14, all of these African ministers, quite concerned about what's happening anyway, will now meet and decide on the next step. And quoting his words, he says they would explore how to respond to the crisis. Obviously, it's a crisis, especially for those who are finding themselves in Southern Africa. Talk about Lesotho, 50% in terms of their tariff rates. South Africa is even much more higher with some 60% rate. So there's a clear crisis on the continent for many who are, in the south. But in the case of Ghana, you find quite a nuanced situation. We're just more or less like the UK, suffering the broad-based 10% impact, right? So that 10% is a broad-based one for countries that are not necessarily in the upper tier, but in the lower tier of what will be taking effect this week. Yes, so Ghana will be suffering that 10%, except to say that if you see from the posture of the U.S. ambassador to Ghana, there's some sort of a posture of a friendly atmosphere of what happened today. And in fact, we've been getting sources tell us clearly what might have happened. It appears that the indication is contrary to reports that this was some sort of a summons by the president or by the foreign affairs minister. It's quite the reverse and the opposite. Ghana finds itself in the lower tier. You don't want to escalate the situation. So obviously these are Ghanaian officials that are just asking for clarity and finding out how better we could cushion the Ghanaian economy and by extension the private sector. Mind you, Mamiesi, the point is that we have other windows. The Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, which is receding way in September, that has quite a relaxed waiver regime for Ghanaian manufacturers and perhaps exporters. But the promise then, and what we should be negotiating for now going forward, as the ambassador is saying or calling for further talks, is to try and get more opportunities under AGOA so that irrespective of the impact of the 10% tariff, we'll still be able to negotiate something
as we know
and get some opportunities.
AGOA is about lapsing this year, right?
Precisely. No clear indication from the Trump administration, but that is where perhaps an opportunity lies for African countries, and especially Ghana, which is known as a beacon of democracy, enjoyed some sort of good relations, as the U.S. ambassador is saying. She's been good friends with the foreign minister. So that gives you leverage as a diplomat, because you can't negotiate if you're not talking to each other. So that word is instructive, and we're hoping that in the coming days there'll be a clear directive from the president. And I must say that it is likely that the president will be briefed today on this meeting that has happened. Per our constitution, the president holds that ultimate reserve as to making clear foreign policy decisions. He'll be seized with the facts and will communicate to the country in the coming days on that.
Well, Blessed, I know you have sources with these international, people, but do you get any inkling that the U.S. position will change?
Largely a foreign policy position, and you sometimes tell from either the posture of the country through its institutions or from the head of state, because ultimately it's the head of state that will make the ultimate decision. We've seen the rhetoric, a change in rhetoric clearly from the U.S. president. So there's no doubt that at least there's some change in posture and direction from the Trump administration. But what is instructive is that you listen to what the officials of these, countries are telling us, because that is what the country or any other diplomat would work with. You listen to the American ambassador when she was engaging a select few of journalists like us last week, and her clear indication was that, look, regardless of the rhetoric, regardless of what might be changing in Washington, you still remain a very critical ally to the U.S. And perhaps we're just guessing. We're not saying that for a fact. That's why maybe Ghana finds itself in that lower tier of the 10% tariff. But we still want to find some greater opportunities in reaching the U.S. market. Perhaps that's the reason why the ambassador for the U.S. is calling for further engagements. We'll wait to see what will happen. But after the president is briefed on the matter, we'll provide our audience with some more updates on that.
Thank you so much, Blessed Soga, giving us updates from the Foreign Ministry on the latest on the U.S. tariff on Ghana. Well, moving on, work on the Tema Flower Road has resumed after stalling for over a year following an appeal from the Minister for Roads, Governs Abuja, for contractors to return to site. BHM International Construction, the contractor handling the 17-kilometer stretch, returned to site today. The contractor is appealing to government to expedite the process of reinstating the loan facility for the highways construction. The 17-kilometer stretch, which runs from the Tema roundabout to Central University, is estimated to cost $105 million and is expected to be completed within 18 months. Country Director of BHM International Construction UK Limited, Adrian Wilson, spoke to Joy News.
Delighted by the reassurances publicly made by government recently with regards to the bilateral agreements required for funding to be unfroze, the debt restructuring. So with that, we've decided to resume works again.
Well, let's touch base with our correspondent Collins Frimpong, who's been following this since morning. Collins, what more can you report?
So,
I can hear you. Go ahead. Unfortunately, it looks like Collins is frozen over there. But then we know that Client Relations Manager at BHM International Construction, Wisdom Adonu, has been speaking to us. But let's go back to Collins Frimpong to give us the updates on that. Collins.
Mami, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Right. So, as we heard the country manager for BHM, we've also been engaging the Client Relations Manager for BHM that is Wisdom Patolo, and he has been telling us that in as much as the project is expected to be completed.
Well, let's listen now to Client Relations Manager at BHM International Construction, Wisdom Adono.
20-kilometer project where we take to for interchanges and also service. And the project was stopped as a result of neglecting restructure. Since the project stopped, for the first time we had a lot of assurances from the Minister, President, Finance Minister that this is a priority. And the enthusiasm from the Minister is a priority. Give it at the back of his last press conference as well. Remobilize staff went so far. I don't think yes, we have confidence in that.
Well, we apologize for that poor quality of sound, and we'll definitely fix our lines and get in touch with Collins in subsequent bulletins. Now, the Trauma, Emergency and Acute Care Medicine Research Network says its work over the past decade has shown an appreciable level of injuries are caused by road accidents, and over 50% end up losing their lives. Here's a report by Irabna Akwe.
Site Principal Investigator at Team RN, Dr. Daniel Osei-Kwame, says over 82% of all cases of severe or moderate injuries are as a result of road accidents, emphasizing that Ghanaian roads remain unsafe to ply.
Once in a while we hear of an accident on the road and the whole Ghana, gets up to talk about it. But we need to go beyond that. Over 82% of all cases of severe injuries or even moderate injuries are as a result of road traffic accidents. That means that for whatever we do, our road is not still safe for us. And that is something we need to take a look at.
Dr. Daniel Osei-Kwame was speaking at the network's 10th anniversary themed A Decade of Discovery, highlighting team's achievements and breakthroughs in clinical research and healthcare. Since its inception, Team RN has been at the forefront of advancing trauma care through innovative research, education, and networking among healthcare providers. The anniversary event at the Komfonochi Teaching Hospital brought together healthcare professionals, researchers, and community members to reflect on a decade of significant contribution to trauma care and emergency medicine in Ghana. The head of the Research and Development Unit at CAT, Dr. Evans Yeboah, observed most traumas are related to head injuries.
Usually when we do our performance reviews and from some of the research that is coming up, we are seeing a lot of head injuries. It's a major concern for us.
He added that though cases of injuries are on the rise in Ghana, there are inadequate resources to care for patients that are admitted with severe cases.
Our capacity to handle head injuries, spinal injuries and all that is mainly based on neurosurgery specialization. And if you look across the country, we have a very limited resource base for neurosurgery care. And so, whereas we are seeing the numbers increasing, we don't have a lot of people to support the care in that area. So it's an area that we need a lot of preventive interventions, a lot of education to our public, people using tricycles, motorcycles, the using of helmets, seat belts, and all these things, so that we can prevent these injuries. Whilst the nation as a whole builds its capacity in terms of neurosurgery care to handle some of these things.
A significant aspect of the anniversary was the unveiling of a dissemination plan aimed at a weekly or monthly publication of research findings to inform the public about the current statistics of traumas and injuries in Ghana. Reporting for Joy News, Irabna Akwe, Kumasi.
Member of the Defence and Interior Committee of Parliament and former Deputy Defence Minister Amankwa Menu has called on government to allow an independent probe into the cocaine and money laundering allegations raised by the ranking member of the committee, Reverend Intim Fojo. The call comes after Reverend Intim Fojo alleged that drug trafficking and money laundering in an aircraft that landed in Ghana. Speaking to the press in Kumasi, Amankwa Menu expressed concern over the gravity of the claims and emphasized the need for transparency and accountability in government affairs. According to him, the claims by the ranking member require an immediate probe. Well, Nana Boachi Yadom has been on the beat for us and joins us via Zoom. Nana, Amankwa Menu talked about the availability of evidence. What specifically did he say?
Well, Mamiesi, Mr. Amankwa Menu did not specifically mention the evidence that the minority or the Reverend Intim Fojo has to back the allegations that he has made. But according to him, the Defence and Interior Committee, members on it from the NPP side, are in full support of the claims made by Reverend Intim Fojo because they believe that before the claims were made, the intel and the data that they had gathered supports the fact that indeed a cocaine was in that flight that landed at the Kotoka International Airport. I pushed further to ask that if indeed they have evidence, why do they not make it available? Then he indicated that they are going to come out with the evidence going forward, but they want government to quickly go ahead with the investigations that they have called for. And so right now, the minority and the members of the members of the Defence and Interior Committee of Parliament from the NPP side are saying that what they need from government is its swift investigation into the matter. But for evidence going forward, they are going to bring them out.
Well, Nana, did he specifically mention the data that they have? Did he show it to you?
Well, I pushed further to ask the same question, Mamiesi. They said that so far, with the details that they have provided and the availability of Reverend Intim Fojo to assist with the investigation, they believe that that alone is enough. But for the exact information and evidence that they have, they'll be willing to provide it when they appear before any investigative committee.
Right. Now, the purpose of the visit to the Dum PZ was to support those affected by the recent fire. Tell us more about that.
So the Mr. Amankwa Menu, the member of the Defence and Interior Committee, led members of Parliament from the Ashanti region, including the Member of Parliament for Bantima constituency, and then the Ashanti Regional Chairman, Bernard Ntubosiako, to sympathize with the traders who are affected by the Adum PZ fire. They went there and contributed 150,000 Ghana cedis to the affected traders. Mamis, you know that the issue in contention is with the traders having the land that they want to go and make sales on. The minority have thrown their weight behind the traders, saying that they are going to stand with them so that they get the land and construct the building themselves. They are going to resist any attempt by government to go ahead with the construction of the structures, but then leave it to the traders, and then they are going to give them the full support they need.
Right. Thank you so much, Nana Boachi Yadom. Now, Tema Regional Command of the Ghana National Fire Service has warned that traders at Community 1 Market are at a greater risk in the event of a major fire due to challenges assessing the market. Fire service maintains congestion and obstruction to fire appliances make it difficult for personnel to attend to distress calls promptly. The service is ready to support various assemblies in the region to decongest markets, helping create access for emergencies. Regional Public Relations Officer for Fire Service DO13, Ebenezer Yenzu, disclosed this to Joy News after visiting Community 1 Market and a new market facility at Ashaiman. There's more on this report.
This observation by the Ghana National Fire Service comes on the back of a fire incident at Tema Community 1 Market last Thursday, where fire tenders attending to the scene could not gain access due to obstruction. Although the personnel were able to put out the fire after connecting a number of hoses reaching the fire source, 8 shops were affected. After assessing emergency preparedness at the Community 1 Market in Tema and the new markets being built at Ashaiman, Fire Service is expressing worry. Here is Tema Regional Public Relations Officer DO3 Ebenezer Yenzu.
Accessibility to the market is very bad, and when the space is not created for vehicles to be able to maneuver through, had it not been that it was where the fire occurred was closer, it was just about, let's say, about 80 to 100 meters from the gate, and it had been inside the market, the inner core of the market, would have struggled more to get access to the seat of the fire. And so we always advise our market women and our traders to ensure that they do not do those extensions when they have the stores issued out to them. They should not. They should make sure that extensions are not done. When these extensions are done, that is where they block the internal routes that we can be able to use for firefighting and other emergency times.
Meanwhile, traders at the Community 1 markets have shared their readiness to support decongestion in the market and have praised fire service for helping prevent another market disaster.
Partially bent, but some people fully bent. But the machine, I'm fortunate, some couldn't bend, but the materials, most of the materials has bent. But even human being, two people cannot pass. So how can a whole fire tender pass? So I support anything that they will do that will help. Any demolition that they will do that will help the community. If they will put that their dirty politics aside, we don't have issue with that.
Now it's a hashi pan, hashi. But I come maybe me say. Be the support be ashi by ensuring too much, but me want kakakra.
I really want to thank the fire service because they've really done a great job. They've done well because we called and they answered us very early.
Fire service for na ya de papa edi nyankopon din eda wo mase pa nya wo ma enka ye nyina ye kan ye bi wo le ni subi nya wo ma enka ye nyina ebe ko ba bi bebre.
The team, led by Tema Regional Fire Commander ACFO2 Patrick Salah, has advised traders to put off appliances, coal-pots and any fire source before leaving the market for their homes.
A former Member of Parliament for Dome-Kwabinya, Sarah Adjoa-Safo, has expressed disappointment over the New Patriotic Party's failure to postpone of her scheduled appearance before the party's disciplinary committee. The former deputy majority leader visited the party's headquarters today, where she encountered only a party official despite having been summoned. Adjoa-Safo said she was surprised the party was able to serve her the initial summons on a Sunday, yet failed to do the same when the meeting was later suspended. She, however, stated that she remains available to appear before the committee whenever she is officially invited again.
A weekend, legally, weekends and public holidays are not proper days, properly so-called, to serve someone any official notice. But I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm a lawyer of 23 years standing, and I know what is proper. So when I received the letter, no, it's just one day notice. I'm here to appear before the disciplinary committee. So I'm going up, and when I'm done, probably we'll talk again.
Oh, meaning you've not met anybody yet?
I just got in.
Haven't you heard of information that that meeting has been suspended?
I haven't been personally served. You know, when you set a precedent, which is that you served me to appear personally, which was yesterday. I haven't seen anything with my security guard as they did yesterday that tells me that anything is being postponed.
But for clarity, you may have heard, but officially you've not been notified of it.
I haven't heard. I got it yesterday, and I've been with my colleague lawyers in my law firm trying to prepare to be here. So whatever you're talking about, I think that I should have been served personally, and I haven't received any such notice. That's why I'm here.
Like you said, when you climb upstairs and there's nobody there, what are you going to do? Are you going to bounce back?
Let's not let's not preempt, but it's rather a premature question. It's moot at the moment. Let me get upstairs, see whether the committee members are there, if there's any other party official here to talk to me, if there's been a postponement or whatever. I don't know, but I've been summoned to appear.
Something that this process is selective and also an attempt to gag you.
Let me go upstairs, and then when I'm done, I'll come back and talk.
Thank you very much.
Well, a group of Irish youth of the National Democratic Congress NDC in the Kumewu constituency of the Ashanti region has stormed the party office, causing significant damage to property. Sets of computers, chairs, tables and important documents were vandalized. The incident is related to internal party conflict in the selection of district chief executive for Seche Kumewu.
The rampaging NDC youth in the Kumewu constituency are upset with the processes and comments in certain quarters regards the nomination of their preferred candidate for the district chief executive position. They vandalized the party's constituency office, allegedly over unsavory tribal comments. They insist they will only support Shamsu Huda, the NDC deputy secretary of the constituency, for the position. The youth believe Shamsu is the most suitable candidate due to his long-standing service to the party, spanning over 24 years. NDC Kumewu constituency secretary Swali Olanto Yakubu addressed a press conference.
His efforts, contributions, sacrifice in the party and the constituency is very well recognized by all. His efforts, contributions, sacrifice is not only recognized by the constituency, but also regional executives and some national executives as well. Friends of the media, permit me to ask, if NDC is given the DC position based on meritocracy, is Mr. Shamsu Huda not qualified to be the DC for Kumewu? What disqualifies him from being the DC? If the grassroots endorses a person as the preferred and best candidate, is the NDC turning deaf ears to their request? Is the NDC giving appointments or positions based on origin, meaning where you come from? Is that what they are doing?
The youth say if the party wants their support, the DC candidate should not elude Shamsu Huda.
You're watching GN Today. Still to come in the bulletin, we'll take you to Aminemo, a farming community where farmers dig the mud for water to drink.
Hey, welcome back to Business here on Joy News Today. My name is Winston Taki, and that's our first business story. The Bank of Ghana has justified the decision to increase the monetary policy rate, insisting it needed to tame inflation, stimulate growth, and improve the business environment. The central bank said this in a meeting with executives of the Ghana Union of Traders Association in Accra.
The meeting is part of Bank of Ghana's plan to open up the workings of the Monetary Policy Committee to critical stakeholders in the business community. The Bank of Ghana sees the Ghana Union of Traders Association as a critical stakeholder when it comes to letting them appreciate the policy decisions of the Bank of Ghana. The union had in the past criticized the Bank of Ghana over its policy rate hikes and its impact on cost of credit in the country. But speaking at the engagement with the executives of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, Director of Research of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Philip Abrodotu, says the Bank of Ghana had no option but to hike the rate to check excess liquidity on the market.
Distinction clear that the liquidity comes in two forms. We have liquidity that sits with the banking system, and then we have liquidity in the rest of the economy. The liquidity we are talking about is liquidity with the banking system. And for the past 3 months, we've seen heavy doses of liquidity in the banking system. The question is, where is that liquidity coming from? That liquidity is coming from, we saw some fiscal slippages in the last quarter of the year. November, December, there was heavy spending towards the election. All that liquidity has found its way into the banking system. Then come January, there were also some heavy payments that were made. Now, this liquidity in the banking system is looking for work to do somewhere. So the liquidity keeps moving around, and the central bank needs to act fast to clean that liquidity, else when it spills into the economy, it's another problem.
The president of the Ghana Union of Trade Association, Dr. Joseph Obeng, noted that even though he welcomes the action by the Bank of Ghana, he's still struggling to understand the excess liquidity challenge being put across by the regulator.
And at least I know that we are fighting it from a certain angle. But then we have to look at ways that we can solve this inflation, the interest rate, and especially the exchange rate.
Speaking at the same program, Director of Communications at the Bank of Ghana, Bernard Otebel, noted that this engagement is very important to the regulator.
Into our corridors to see exactly what goes into the inflation dynamics. How did we arrive at the decision? What led to the decision, and what are the things that were considered before the decision was made? And most importantly, the forward-looking aspect of it. What do we see, the path going ahead?
President of the Ghana Union of Trade Association, Joseph Obeng, welcomed the engagement.
It's very important that we mirror to you the actual practical issues on the ground to help the technocrats to do their work. So we are very happy that now there's clarity in the way you formulate some of these policies and come by these decisions that you make. Sometimes it become confusing to us, the public. Now we are going to explain to our members why such decisions were made. Sometimes you will not understand unless you come here. And having come here, we are very convinced that you've really saved this from any further problem regarding inflation.
The Bank of Ghana has revealed that this is one of several engagements that it would be undertaken with the business community in the coming weeks.
In other development, government missed its Treasury bill target for the third consecutive time this year. The Bank of Ghana auction results showed that government also rejected a little over 2.3 billion cedis of the total bids, despite recording a 7% undersubscription. There is more in this Business Desk report.
The government got 4.05 billion cedis from the sale of the short-term instrument as against a target of 4.39 billion cedis. The majority of the bids came from the 91-day bill. About 3.380 billion cedis, representing 83% of the total bids, came from the 3-month bill. The government only accepted 1.44 billion cedis of the bids. For the 182-day bill, only 501.17 million cedis were tendered. The uptake was 81.09 million cedis. A little over 176 million cedis were tendered for the 364-day bill, with the government accepting 161 million cedis of the bids. Meanwhile, interest rates continued to fall on the yield curve. The yield on the 91-day T-bill declined by only 7 basis points to 15.64%. The 182-day bill also dropped to 16.50% from the previous 16.70%. The rate on the 364-day bill also declined marginally to 18.83%.
That's all for business. My name is Winston Taki. Up next is Sports with Haruna Mubarak.